Life before Melody had its simplicity. Growing up in a quiet town, I was a dreamer with ambitions bigger than my modest surroundings. My father wasn't around, and my mother did her best to raise me and my sister, teaching us resilience through her unwavering determination. I learned early that life wouldn't hand me anything. I'd have to fight for it. My passion for business grew as I watched local bar owners thrive. To them, it wasn't just a livelihood, but a connection to the community. I spent hours poring over books about entrepreneurship, eventually taking online courses to shape my vision. I vowed that one day I'd own a place of my own, a haven for locals and visitors alike. There are days when nothing seems to go your way, and all your efforts feel like a waste. On those days, staying in bed and hiding under the covers feels like the best choice. Being the person everyone looks to for answers, especially at home, often weighs heavier than it should. For me, the trouble began when the phone rang early one Saturday morning. The police informed me my bar had been broken into. I rushed to get dressed and leave, only to find I had a flat tire on top of just getting a few hours of sleep. In a hurry, I took my wife's car since it was Saturday. The thieves had stolen most of the liquor and left the cash locked in the safe. One officer said they'd even driven their car through the front doors. I figured it'd be at least 2 weeks before the bar could reopen. The police classified it as a robbery. After the insurance agent took pictures, I boarded up the bar and waited for repairs. Luckily, insurance covered the retail losses. Around lunchtime, as I was getting ready to leave, a man shouted, "Melody, wait." When he saw me, he froze, muttered, "Sorry, wrong car," and walked away. I described him to my wife, but she didn't recognize him. Melody asked why I was in such a hurry earlier. I told her about the break-in and how the police had called me. After a quick sandwich, I fixed the tire on my truck. It was a burst valve stem, and headed out. I stopped to buy some new clothes and a MAGA hat before heading home to find a note saying Melody had gone shopping. I used to work late on Fridays and Saturdays, so when I got home, it was already morning. I shaved off my beard for the first time in 12 years, showered, and got ready for the night shift. I didn't bother to comb my hair, and my curls were everywhere. I barely recognized myself. Determined to make the most of the night, I set out to check out other places in town. I drove my wife's car, changed into my new clothes at the bar, and grabbed a pair of old reading glasses left behind by a coworker. With my clean-shaven look and glasses, I could easily pass for a college student. But then I realized everyone knew my truck, so I called a cab and rented an unremarkable Ford. I toured several bars, learning what I could for when the bar reopened. By the time I reached the 7th stop, I walked into a place by the river where university students hung out. That's when I saw her, Melody, dancing with a man who wasn't me. They were close, too close for comfort. This was the same man who'd called her name earlier, at lunch, proving she'd lied to me. Melody was wearing an outfit I'd never seen before, tight and revealing. As a bartender, I knew appearances could be deceiving, so I found a seat and started watching her. A guy offered me a table if I bought drinks, so I took the offer. I casually asked about Melody, and they told me her name, and that she was often seen with Payne Richards, her boss. Curious, I asked if they were more than just friends. The consensus was that Payne was single and Melody was complicated. They came to the bar every Friday and Saturday, and a redhead across the table said Melody often came alone since her husband worked out of town. I learned one more thing when a girl at the table mentioned they always arrived in Melody's car before the band's last set. After thanking the group and buying another round, I stepped outside, quickly spotted her car, and began deflating the tires. But the redhead from the table caught me. "You didn't know, did you, Caleb?" she said. "I'm Carrie Ann. I work with them." "How'd you know who I am?" I asked. "I didn't at first," she replied, "but I could see it in your eyes. You were holding back all night. Your eyes followed her too much. When I saw you letting air out of her tires, it all clicked." Carrie continued, "Your questions made me wonder what I'd do if I were her husband just learning this. So here I am." I was confused. "I'm using a rental. My usual car is at the shop." "The Badia Street bar is closed today, right?" "Melody thinks you still work there. I've been checking out the competition tonight." I handed her the keys. "Take it. I don't want anyone seeing me with you." Carrie smiled and said, "You work at Batia's? I've heard good things." She walked toward her car. She asked, "Where to?" "Anywhere quiet," I replied. "Let's go to my place," she grinned. "I need a ride home." The drive to her modular home was about 20 minutes. I noticed a car in the driveway. "That's my car," Carrie said. Susan, the brunette from the table, picked me up earlier. It's easier to avoid attention when you say you came with a friend. Inside, Carrie grabbed beers for us, and we sat down to talk. Thanks for stopping me, I said. You made me realize I might have been overreacting. You weren't, Carrie replied. Payne has a standing reservation at the Ramada on 4th. If you follow them after closing, you'll find them there. She comes in wearing jeans and a t-shirt, leaves dressed up, then returns a couple of hours later, freshly washed, in the same clothes. They've been lovers for over a year. How do you know all this? I asked. My brother's a night manager there, she explained. He works Wednesday through Sunday. He overheard them talking. Melody mentioned you work on the oil rigs and are gone for months at a time. He thinks you have an open relationship. I must have looked stunned. You had no idea, did you? She asked. No, I answered. Carrie leaned in, offering help. Let me talk to my brother. He might have video footage of them. She could also get her own key card for his room. We exchanged contact info before I left. My next question, would the flat tires tell me if Carrie was right? I got back to the bar just before closing. The lot was well lit, and a few minutes later I saw Melody and Payne leaving, holding hands and kissing. As they walked to her car, he unlocked the passenger door. But when they got close, he noticed the tires were flat. Melody checked the other side and saw all 4 were flat. Though I couldn't hear their conversation, their actions told me a lot. They acted like a couple who'd been together a while. Payne called for a tow truck, and 20 minutes later they had the tires inflated. He drove her back to the Ramada. Just as Carrie had said, Melody came out with damp hair, dressed in jeans, and carrying a Macy's shopping bag. It hit me. She'd sworn to love me alone, but here she was, with another man. I had learned this the hard way. I returned the rental and took a cab to my truck. By the time I got home, it was 5 a.m. I fell asleep on the couch in the family room, still wearing what I had on when I left for work the day before. Melody had no idea her secret was out. I met Melody when I was dragged into a double date by a friend. Her family was visiting cousins and she had to come along. The moment I saw her, shoulder-length black hair, striking blue eyes, I was hooked. She had those Betty Davis eyes, the kind that felt like they could look straight into your soul. Even without makeup, she was stunning. Her father was strict and didn't allow it. She won me over. I kept visiting Melody every weekend for 2 hours, against my father's wishes. Eventually, my persistence wore him down. She went to college, I worked and took online business courses. By her sophomore year, she was engaged. The next summer, the bar went up for sale, and I helped her father with a few visits. After his team made some wood deliveries, I pointed out the bar's need for a full renovation. He agreed, and I spent an hour explaining what needed to be done. He ended up lending me money from his retirement fund at 6% interest and helped me gut the bar. Together, we built it back up, saving on labor costs. 10 years later, I had paid off most of the loan, reducing it from $200,000 to under $20,000. The bar was now worth double what I'd paid. Keeping his word was important to him. Then Melody's parents pushed us to start a family. I was ready, but she wasn't. I finally understood why. She didn't think I was good enough to be the father of her children. I applied for a commercial loan at the bank and was approved for an overdraft, provided I paid off her father by Wednesday. When I handed him the final payment, he handed it back to me, signed, saying, "You still don't own the bar's name." He explained he'd sold the designs multiple times, doubling his investment. He also gave me a letter stating the mortgage was paid in full. The next day, I paid off the loan and was left with only the overdraft. The bar repairs were moving forward, but Melody remained oblivious, still focused on other things while I was working on the business. On Friday night, I went to their usual hangout, disguised. I sabotaged her squad car by plugging the exhaust and adding sugar to Payne's company car's gas tank. Then I joined them inside, watching them continue to flaunt their affair. They were so caught up in each other, they didn't notice anyone else. Carrie Ann stayed close to me, trying to calm me when I tensed up. I slipped the bartender $100 with my email on it to get his attention. I told him I'd pay $500 for the best video of Melody and Payne by the end of the month, with the caveat that no one could know about it. He agreed to help, even offering to get some Spanish fly for the party they planned. I thought it was a perfect plan, especially since the bar was reopening soon. That night, Melody came home at 3 a.m., creeping around like she didn't want to be caught. She was talking on the phone for a while before joining me in bed. The next morning, I checked her phone records and found she'd talked to Payne after I got home. She'd even sent a message to her sister, saying she'd cover for her by claiming she'd spent the night there. I took a picture of the message, though I later got the explanation that she had been visiting family. The following Tuesday, Carrie Ann texted me, "Can we meet?" I agreed, and we met at the truck stop. When I arrived, she was waiting with a big smile. I had just started growing a mustache and goatee, and she took a picture of me for her contacts. Carrie told me she liked the way I looked. Unfortunately, Melody hadn't noticed the change. I sat down and said, "Hi, Red. You look happy." Carrie replied, "I'm Caleb. You will be too after seeing what my brother gave me this morning. But he wants you to cover his printing costs." I ordered a big breakfast, 3 eggs, toast, sausage, and bacon. Carrie ordered a cheese omelet. We both had coffee and orange juice. The info Carrie shared showed that Melody had had her own keycard to Payne's hotel room for over 6 months. He'd been using it regularly, 4 days a week. That evening, I showed Carrie the message Melody had sent to her sister, explaining her lies. "What are you going to do?" Carrie asked. "Get a divorce? There's a special party for Melody and Payne next Saturday. I hope I get a bunch of tapes." "I'll show all the evidence to her father and file for divorce," I said. "I'll have it videotaped too." Carrie asked me to email her the full package when it was ready. "Why?" I asked. "Payne's corporate car is totaled, and the smell from Melody's car might do the same," Carrie explained. "Let's tell them an angry husband's behind it," I joked. "When do you want it shipped?" Carrie giggled. "How about we have her serviced at the same time?" I laughed. "You're something else." Later, I arranged to get fake birth control pills from a friend who was a pharmacist. He replicated everything, including the labeling. On Wednesday, I had the sugar pills ready before Melody came home. I had already swapped them out. Then luck struck. On my way to work, a driver ran a red light and hit my truck. It was totaled. I had to be cut out of the wreck and was taken to the hospital. Melody and her parents met me there. After 6 hours of exams, the doctors told me to rest for at least 2 days and avoid driving for a week. Melody stayed home to look after me. By Saturday, I was getting impatient. I told her I was ready to go to the bar, so she drove me there. I told my staff I wasn't working, just checking on the changes I'd made. Sales had doubled, and the place was packed by the time the concert started. We were also starting to attract lunchtime customers thanks to daily specials. The restaurant closed at 8 p.m., but afterward, the cook served pickled eggs and sausages. He was an older guy who had retired too early and wanted something to do. At first, I didn't take his offer seriously, but after seeing other bars, I decided to partner with him. He ran the kitchen, set the prices, and in return, I had to pay him 10% of the profits. He made everything from scratch, and his shepherd's pie and Irish stew became a hit. The changes at the bar were a success, and our stock quickly started to deplete. We hired new kitchen staff, handpicked by the head cook, and the reviews were excellent. Around 8:30 p.m., Carrie Ann Lasher and her friend Susan walked in. Carrie Ann looked stunning in green, and as soon as she saw me, she smiled. At 9 o'clock, a 3-piece band began playing folk and Irish tunes. Carrie and Susan sat at a large table, and I sent over a couple of specialty drinks as a compliment. "Thanks, Caleb," Carrie Ann said. "Remember what we like." She introduced me to Susan, and after a handshake, Susan excused herself. I grabbed a ginger ale behind the bar, sticking to my promise not to drink at my own place. As I returned to the table, Carrie Ann sat next to me. "Caleb is Melody's ex-husband," she told Susan, who was surprised. I explained that I had been in town to check out local bars and was invited to sit with them one night. Carrie caught me doing something I shouldn't have, and I ended up giving her a ride home. We became friends after that. Carrie added, "He didn't know what his wife was doing while he worked here." Susan asked why I chose Beisha, a high-end bar, to open. I laughed and said I just wanted a nice spot to bring my girlfriend. Carrie smiled and added, "Caleb not only built this bar, but he owns it." As the evening went on, the bar filled up. Carrie Ann and Susan kept me on the dance floor, and the staff noted that the place had never been so lively. The volume of the band was perfect, and we had more customers than usual for a Saturday. After closing, Carrie Ann and Susan drove me home. Carrie mentioned that the crew agreed the bar was a better hangout because it wasn't geared toward college students. I was pleased to hear that word of mouth had brought in a broader crowd. Sunday morning, after a good night's sleep, I woke up to find Melody wasn't home. I pretended to be concerned and spent the next couple of hours calling both sides of the family. When I couldn't reach her, I called Carrie Ann for advice. Just as I was talking to Carrie, I got another call from my father-in-law. He told me he and his wife had gone to brunch at the Ramada Inn and found Melody's car parked there. I didn't know how to respond. "I still can't drive because my truck's totaled," I said. Enjoy your lunch, and I'll talk to you later. My father-in-law was a strict, no-nonsense man. He had strong views on law and order, often criticizing the government and modern culture. We had long discussions about the state of the world. People expect the government to be an example, but it's full of hypocrisy, I said. One side promotes law and order, while the other encourages breaking it. I added, if Hitler were alive, they'd probably claim they're following his early path. Anyone who disagrees is labeled a racist, even if they just don't accept their views. My father-in-law agreed that things were likely to get worse before they improved. This is exactly what happened before Hitler rose to power. History's repeating itself, and it's sad that one party is trying to bring that culture back to America. I couldn't help but think that such attitudes were what sparked the first Civil War, and I wondered if we were headed for another one. Dad, I said, whether we like it or not, this is the reality we're living in now. In his eyes, if Melody's father caught her with a lover, she'd be lucky to escape with her life. I sent him a message, letting him know this wasn't the first time she disappeared without telling me, and shared the photo of her message to her sister. I called Carrie Ann to fill her in on what my father-in-law had discovered. She laughed and asked, "What are you doing? Other than smiling?" I replied, "Not much." "Want me to pick you up and do something?" she offered. I declined, saying, "It's probably best not to disappear. They'll worry." Around 6 p.m., I was eating a pizza when I saw Melody's dad pull into the driveway. He looked like a broken man. I let him in and poured us both a drink. He said, "It's bad. I went to talk to Mandy. Turns out Melody's affair has been going on for over 6 months. Mandy knew and kept it a secret because Melody wanted to live a wild, single life before settling down." I pretended to be shocked, though I was more surprised that Mandy had been honest about it. "I saw them together," he continued. "She came out holding his hand, looking proud of herself. I passed out right there." He added, "I came here because I think this will be the last place the cops will look for me." "Dad," I said, "I'll call Mom to let her know you're okay, and then I'll check with the hotel manager about whether the lover's pressing charges." My mother-in-law was devastated, but at least relieved that her husband had come to see me. Melody called her to apologize. "For what?" her mother snapped. "For getting caught? For putting your father in danger? Your apology means nothing." Then she hung up. I told her, "If I hear anything else, I'll let you know." I then called Jason Lasher. "I still owe you $5, I said. He laughed. "Did my sister tell you that?" "Yes, several times," I replied. "She never forgets anything," he said. "If you want, pay me in front of her. It'll save us both a lot of trouble." "Why?" I asked. "She clings to things like our mom," he explained. "She needs to see it before she can let go." I chuckled. "I can handle it as long as I know." Then he added, "I think she has a thing for you. If you're not interested, let her go." "I'm still married," I said. "Until I'm done with that, I'm not making decisions. I'll be careful with her." I also asked if the police had been called. He told me they hadn't, thanks to Melody convincing Payne not to press charges, even though he wanted to. "Thank you, Jason," I said, relieved. I shared the good news with Dad, who visibly relaxed. "Caleb, what are you going to do about this mess?" he asked. I pulled out my phone and showed him the message I planned to send to Melody. "Dad just told me everything. Congratulations. You've ruined our marriage in one day. Don't be sad. Be happy. You got what you wanted. Don't come home. The Melody I knew doesn't live here anymore. If you send him to his father, my marriage will end now. If not, it will die slowly for another 6 months. I said it with sincerity. Once trust is gone, it can never be regained." Dad agreed. "Let's give this dead marriage a quick, honorable end." As I hit send, he said, "Mary always said Melody married her father. This proves she was right." After pizza and drinks, we went to Lumberland and bought a set of 3 deadbolt locks. Once installed, Mandy's family, her mom, Jack, and the kittens, showed up. They left around 10 p.m. I texted Carrie Ann. "Are you awake?" She called right back. "Are you okay?" Jason told me what happened. "Payne has 2 black eyes and a broken nose," she said. "Your father-in-law really gave him a knocking, but only managed 3 punches before Jason stepped in." I laughed, replying, "He used to box when he was younger." "I'd love to see that," she said. I explained that after everything happened, my father-in-law came to my place because he didn't know where else to go. I told her there were no charges, and the family had gathered to discuss everything before heading home. "What about Melody?" she asked. I told her my father-in-law had read the message I sent to Melody. He said, "Let's give this noble the judicial execution and press send." Your father-in-law sent that? She asked. Yeah, I replied. He believes she broke the trust and there's no going back. For him, it's black or white. She made her bed. I agree with him, she said. Didn't he help you change the locks? Yeah, I said. Carrie then asked if I had heard any updates from the previous night. No, been too busy, but it doesn't matter now. I'll keep my word, I said, laughing. Give it until Monday night, Carrie said. It might surprise you. Why? I asked. Rumor is the bartender at New City Jack used to be in, well, videos, she said. Seriously? I asked. Yes, she replied. And if it's true, it wouldn't surprise me if he took advantage of the situation. Well then, I said. Guess I've got a bigger mess than I thought. Carrie then asked, when's our first official date? I smiled and said, how about the day Melody is served? I'll even arrange it in the office. She laughed. And don't forget the red roses so I can rub it in her face. As I hung up, I thought about Carrie Ann. She was 24, attractive, and about 5'8", with a strong personality. She worked at the same dental office as Melody, but wasn't part of management. She had a tight-knit family and was selective about who she let into her life, but we got along well. She was social, loved to dance and drink, and had a cautious side that made me curious about her. She seemed more educated than her job suggested, which left me wondering if there was more to her story. The next morning, Mandy arrived in Jack's truck to help me pack up Melody's things. We started with the master bedroom. As I taped up boxes, Mandy went through the dresser drawers. I can't believe what Melody's doing, she said. I didn't approve of it, but I thought she'd come to her senses. She continued, when Dad told me about your message, I broke down. I've known about it for a month, and he took it hard. Blamed himself for not raising her right. I think Mom feels the same. Mandy, I'm still dealing with the shock, I said. I didn't expect any of this. When Melody texted you, that's when I found out. I was at the bar just checking out the competition and got the picture. I was starting to build a case. I didn't want it to turn out like this, I added. I'm really sorry. Damn, Mandy said. Didn't you tell her the bar was broken into and closed? Yeah, I said. But looking back, I think she didn't listen. It was her way of telling me our marriage was over. I paused and said, Melody was always protected by Dad, just like I was. I didn't really get it until I had kids. Now, I try to teach my children that same sacrifice. Melody has always struggled with right and wrong, and that's never going to change, I said. I think about your parents a lot. They tried their best. Mandy nodded. Not many can say their father-in-law is one of their best friends. After Mandy got to her sister's underwear, she asked for scissors and cut out the crotches and between the cups of Melody's bras before packing them. It seemed like a message. The ruined items went into a box, and I was relieved she did it. I couldn't. It took about 4 hours to pack half the things, and then I asked Mandy if she wanted to grab lunch. She took me to a new Chinese place, Yumi's, which had a great variety of food for the price. We arrived as the lunch crowd was clearing and ran into Payne on his way out. He looked rough, black eyes, a broken nose, and swollen lips. My father-in-law had really worked him over. My God, Mandy said. Dad did that to him? It'll take 2 months to heal, I replied. An eyewitness said Dad only landed 3 punches before they had to stop him. Looks like Dad still has a hell of a punch, I added. Would Payne be in the hospital if they hadn't stopped him? Mandy asked. I don't know, I said, getting out of the car. As we walked toward the restaurant, Payne appeared from around the corner. Mandy, please unblock Melody. She needs to talk to you, he said. Mandy, have you met my brother-in-law, Caleb? I stepped forward and Payne's face went pale when he saw me. He raised his fist, ready to fight. If that's what you want, Payne, fine, I said. Mandy will tell you it was your fault. When Mandy confirmed that, I kicked Payne hard in the balls. As he doubled over, I punched him twice, then kicked him again. I didn't realize it, but I needed that release. We went inside, ordered drinks, and sat down. Mandy asked, Did my dad teach you those moves? Not exactly, I said. But when I fight, I want to end it fast. As we filled our plates, my phone rang. Melody was calling. I ignored it, pressing the red button to hang up. I bet her boyfriend already called her, I said. Too bad he won't be getting anything anytime soon. Mandy laughed uncontrollably, drawing attention from nearby tables. I would never joke with her in public again, I said. God, that was funny, she said, wiping tears from her eyes. I almost peed myself. Good thing you didn't, I replied. How would you explain that to Jack? I'd yell flash flood, she said, still laughing. After lunch, we went back to packing. By 5 p.m., we were unloading Jack's truck at the storage unit. I paid the deposit and the first month's rent, and the owner agreed to hold the keys until Melody picked them up. I texted her to let her know what we'd done. Later, my insurance company called about my truck. They offered a low settlement, which I turned down. Instead, I asked them to replace it with a commercially inspected vehicle with equal or fewer miles. That way, they'd have to pay a lot more to replace it. When we got home, Carrie and Susan were waiting for us. I introduced them to Mandy as Melody's co-workers and invited them inside. Mandy called Jack to update him, and soon we were all sitting around drinking beer. "We came by to check on you," Carrie said, "and see if you'd like to join us for dinner." "Payne's in serious condition," Susan added. "He went to the hospital after lunch and hasn't come back." "Melody's apartment hunting," Carrie said casually. "I don't feel sorry for any of them," Mandy muttered. "We spent the day moving Melody's stuff to storage," I said, trying to shift the mood. "Caleb let me pack her underwear so her future lovers will have easy access to it." Carrie spoke up. "I informed the company about the Payne-Melody situation with a picture of Payne's face. Office romances are not allowed, especially long-term affairs." Mandy shot me a look. "Do you hate my sister that much?" "No," I said. "I hated her behavior." Carrie added, "I get it. I grew up in a family where actions had consequences. If we did something good, we were praised. If not, we paid for it. I just think they'd gotten away with too much." I stepped out to take a call from the bar, and when I returned, Carrie filled me in on what I missed. Mandy asked, "Carrie, how long have you been in love with Caleb? Seriously?" She recalled the first night they met, when Caleb discovered his wife's affair. He held back his anger until he couldn't anymore. Carrie laughed. "Instead of confronting her, he went outside and let the air out of her tires. I caught him. I could see his pain, even though he was trying to hide it. He told me to wait in his rental car so I wouldn't get involved. He was ready to take the fall for what he did, but didn't want me with him. That's when I realized he was different." "We talked that night," Carrie continued. "He didn't curse or humiliate her. He just wanted to figure out how to get proof to explain to his father-in-law why Melody didn't want kids with him." Mandy nodded, understanding. "Caleb's always been special. He's a peacemaker. He's hurting, but never admits it." Carrie added, "You have my blessing, but if you hurt him, I'll come after you." "When your father caught Melody in pain, I was surprised to learn Caleb was the one he turned to," Carrie explained. "Did you know it was your father who sent the text that ended their marriage?" "No, I didn't," Mandy replied. "Thanks for telling me. That explains why my parents never discussed trying to save their relationship." I came out of the kitchen and said, "Mandy, call Jack and the kids and tell them to meet us at the bar. I'm making shepherd's pie for all of us, including Susan and Carrie. I just need a minute to change." After I cleaned up, I returned to find Mandy gone and Susan waiting in the car. Carrie had already cleaned up, throwing away the beer bottles and wiping down the table. "Thanks for doing this," I said. "You're welcome," Carrie replied with a smile. "I like your sister-in-law. I think we'll get along well." "She thinks highly of you, doesn't she?" I asked. "She does," Carrie answered. Then she moved toward me and wrapped her arms around me, lifting her face toward mine. I leaned in and we shared our first kiss. We left the house hand in hand, and as we got to the car, we saw Susan smiling. Carrie climbed into the front passenger seat, and I sat in the back. "You two move slower than molasses," Susan said, laughing. "We're taking small steps until everything's sorted out," Carrie said. "You know I want to be a stay-at-home mom when I have kids with a husband who shares my values." We arrived at Bithia's house, where Mandy and Jack's kids ran up to me, hugging my legs. They'd spent the day with their grandmother. I walked into the bar with a little girl in each hand, and Jack opened the doors for us. I heard Mandy telling Carrie, "I'd be a great father. My daughters just adore him. When they're upset, he's the one who can calm them down and help them sleep. You have no idea how many times I've called him to come work his magic," Mandy added. I made a mental note to get a couple of bar stools. Mandy backed the truck into the store, and the shepherd's pie got rave reviews from everyone, even the older guests. Mandy made a mess of it, which meant it was on me too. As she sat on my knee, Carrie focused on me and my niece. For dessert, the chef made something new. I laughed as Carrie finished her first drink and then took a sip from mine. She was surprised it was just ginger ale. "You're being naughty," she whispered. I chuckled. I promised myself I wouldn't drink at this bar before it opened, and so far I've kept it. I'm not sure what I said, but it brought tears to her eyes, and she looked proud. My assistant called to update me that bar sales were up 16%, with food sales hitting over $1,000 for the first time. When the check arrived, I pulled out my debit card to pay, handing my niece to Lynn. Susan asked, "Why are you doing this?" "Even though I own the place, it's still a business," I explained. "I want my employees to be honest, so I have to be honest too. By paying my bill like any other customer, I'm showing them I won't tolerate them walking out without paying." "A lot of people wouldn't do that," Carrie said, "but it makes sense." I added a 20% tip and put my card away. After saying goodbye, Susan and Carrie drove me back to the house. I checked my email to follow up on Saturday night's events. Carrie was right. A bartender named Jack from New City sent me a 2-hour professionally shot video titled Surviving University Night, featuring Melody Corbett and Payne Richards. The footage was shot from multiple angles and was now being sold on a paid adult site. The email included the contracts they'd signed, legally witnessed, and mentioned that the video was now generating revenue overseas. The note added, "This will help you in a divorce negotiation." I didn't mind. It was true that Melody would make sure her parents never saw it. I texted Carrie to let her know. "You got it right," I wrote. The video of Melody and Payne is up on a paid adult website now. I waited for a response, but nothing came right away. After a while, there was a knock at the door. I had just finished showering and was in my pajamas. When I opened the door, Carrie stood there grinning. But she wasn't just Carrie. She had clearly lost weight, at least 20 pounds, especially around her chest. She'd gone from a size 10 to a slim size 5. "Wow," I said, taken aback. "Who are you and what have you done to my Carrie Ann?" I asked in shock. "You like it?" Carrie grinned. "I've gotten rid of my body shape for good." Her tone shifted. "There's something I need to explain, and your message makes it easier. We've been investigating Richards Dental Supply Corporation for over 2 years. I was confused. "Why?" Carrie took a breath. "I'm an FDA investigator. They put me undercover to make sure I didn't look like the woman Payne was targeting." I still didn't understand. "They import all their materials for false teeth from China," she explained. "They've been underpricing in the market, and we needed to do a forensic audit to find out why." Carrie paused. "It took so long because they used 3 different companies to hide the sources. It was a complicated search." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Richards has been selling contaminated materials for over a decade, making huge profits. Most of the plates sold have lead in them," she continued. "Payne's been stalking married women for years. Melody's his next target. She'll eventually realize he never loved her. She was just someone for him to use." "I came into your life and distracted you," I said, feeling a bit guilty. "Is Susan an agent too?" I asked, trying to piece things together. "Yes, she is. I met her in my first year of college. We were both accounting majors." Carrie paused again. "Before we go any further, I need you to send that video and any other info to my agent at the FBI. Jack the bartender is doing the same thing with others. We sent the info together to help connect the dots and bring down the whole group." I poured her a glass of white wine and grabbed a beer for myself. As we talked, Carrie's phone rang. It was her mom. I asked if she wanted privacy, but she said no, so I put it on speaker. "Hi, Mom," Carrie said, smiling. "I see you got my message," her mom said. "Did you seriously write that you're leaving the FDA?" "Yes," Carrie replied. "Susan and I are finishing up here at the end of the week. We'll start our own firm. Susan's moving in with me to save on costs until we're settled." Her mom was curious. "Why now? We've been pushing you to settle down for years." Carrie laughed. "Okay, Mom, you won't stop until I tell you. I met a man who's made me wonder if he's the one." Her mom didn't hold back. "Is this the same Caleb?" "Mom, that's enough," Carrie said, cutting her off. "Goodbye." She hung up. I tried to lighten the mood. "Don't feel bad. Once the last child leaves, all mothers want grandchildren to fill the void." Carrie smiled, but seemed lost in thought. "I have an appointment with a divorce lawyer tomorrow. Susan and I are quitting Richards. The FDA is coming on Wednesday with warrants and seizure orders. We'll be gone before that happens, so they can claim the information was obtained legally, even though they already know where to look." Carrie left around 1 a.m., and by Tuesday I'd arranged for the insurance to cover the rental car and began the divorce filing process. I was the first one at her place. She asked what proof I had, and I explained the situation. "Call my father-in-law," I suggested. "He's agreed to testify." I let her hear the conversation and showed her the printouts from the Ramada Inn. "If she agrees to the settlement," I continued, "we'll meet with her and her attorney to show the footage. It's from last Saturday night, and they both consented." I added, "I also forwarded the email about it." What makes you so sure she won't fight you after seeing this? She asked, skeptically. Take the stick home and watch the 2-hour video alone, I said, getting up to leave. I keep the business, she gets the house. No support, no anything. And if she refuses? She asked. Then all family members will get a copy of what I just handed you from an anonymous email, I replied. I turned to leave, but she stopped me. Caleb, can you always be so cold and stiff? Only when people leave me no choice, I answered, walking out. The next few days were hectic. Carrie and Susan quit their jobs, leaving Melody, the office manager, scrambling. Payne was in pain, his right hand in a cast, but no one was talking about what happened. Payne spent most of the day in his office dealing with calls from headquarters. He knew he was only still employed because of family ties, but he was given a reprieve after agreeing to pay for 2 company cars out of his pocket. He was also told he had to either marry the woman or fire her, and he agreed to the latter once her divorce was final. After quitting, I visited a real estate broker I knew about office buildings for sale. He thought one near downtown, close to Bosch, could be a gold mine with the right renovations. The building, now owned by a bank, needed a facelift but had potential. After checking it out, I agreed and wrote up a low-price proposal contingent on financing and inspection approval. I asked the broker if I could show the space to a potential client, and he gave me the keys, telling me to bring them by tomorrow. Around 2 p.m., I texted Carrie. Could you and Susan stop by the bar? I need to show you something. She replied quickly, Sure. I called my father-in-law and asked if he could spare an hour. He agreed, and I picked him up. We walked through the building, checking the electrical setup. As we inspected, he pointed out a few things the inspector might miss, which could be useful during negotiations. Smart move, he said. You can always go up, but not down. I think you should go for it. Do you have anyone in mind? I asked. 2 ladies starting their own accounting firm, he replied. They're working with Melody and me, especially since I may have to sell Bosch, he smiled. If you get it, I'll help you remodel. It's bigger than your current place, and there's plenty of parking. Mandy says you're friends with them. She thinks they're good people. Thanks, Dad, I said. Do you think Melody will claim the business in the divorce? He asked. The Melody I used to know probably wouldn't, but the one I'm divorcing probably will. She'll blame me for everything to justify her actions, I replied. Dad looked shocked. But that's not true. It's not what you and I know, I said. But in divorce court, it's about what the judge believes. If we had kids, I'd be screwed, I added. That's wrong, he said. Yeah, but these days most people only care about themselves, I replied. Look at how many people are homeless in California. What's real for most people is whatever the media says, and it lasts as long as the next headline. Later that night, I was at the bar when my realtor called to say my offer on the building was accepted, but they wouldn't finance it. Despite being a good client, I had to secure my own financing. I sent my tax returns to LendingTree to show I was serious. The next day, Susan, Carrie, and I toured the first floor of the building I wanted. It had previously been a call center. I outlined my plans for the new bar and restaurant and asked how much office space they'd need. We can't afford the cost to finish it, Susan said. That's why we're looking for something move-in ready, Carrie added. I decided I'd cover the costs myself and build as the bar progressed. I'll know by Friday if I have financing, I said. I'm getting the building for much less than its appraised value. Melody's dad will help with construction, so that'll cut some costs, I continued. Why are you doing this? Carrie asked. Because the court may force me to sell Bosch in the divorce, so I'm planning ahead, I replied. Draw up your needs for the next 2 years, and I'll work from there, I told them. What if you don't have to sell the bar? Susan asked. My assistant got promoted, and I have 2 surgeries coming up, I answered. Wednesday was rough for Payne, Melody, and his parents. The FDA raided their offices, and Melody was handed my divorce petition for infidelity. On Friday, Melody and Payne flew to Richard's headquarters to finalize the deal, and I secured $250,000 for remodeling. We began tearing down the first floor, quickly removing everything to expose the concrete and steel. While we worked, our draftsman created plans for the entire building, including redesigning the entrance to accommodate an elevator shaft. Contractors installed new plumbing for our spaces, and we added separate entrances for my section and Carrie and Susan's office. I had to cut through concrete for the elevator shaft and build a wall to separate our spaces. Carrie and Susan flew to Washington every Sunday and returned Friday night, helping out when they could. Meanwhile, the divorce talks stalled, with Melody's demands changing every week. I scheduled a meeting with her and her lawyer, ready to fight for what was mine. Once the elevator shaft was finished, I had the exterior sandblasted and repainted. The building looked like new. We also updated the roof to modern standards, then focused on the interior. Carrie and Susan's office was designed with restrooms, a lunchroom, a reception area, and 6 offices. My section included public restrooms, a storage room, and an elevated stage for the band. The contractors worked quickly, and in less than 2 weeks, 2 nearby office buildings were bought, and 2 others were sold and converted into a new Bank of America branch. The local paper reported the neighborhood was being redeveloped. My meeting with Melody and her lawyer was set for Friday. Meanwhile, kitchen equipment arrived, the oak bar was built, and the restaurant's flooring was laid. Everything was coming together fast. My real estate agent found a long-term tenant for the building, covering the mortgage and costs. At the meeting, Melody began showing her true colors, demanding I take responsibility as a father. When she claimed she was still on the pill, I suggested a DNA test to settle it. Then, I had my lawyer show her the contents of the disc I'd given her. Her face went pale as she saw the video, which had over 2 million views at $5.99 each. I reminded her, according to our contract, you're entitled to 5% of the earnings. Since we were married, this is a marital asset. I'm giving you the weekend to come up with a fair agreement, I said. Otherwise, this video will be made public on Tuesday. The room fell silent. I stood up and added, we both know who the father of your child is. His name is Payne. Live with it. I walked out, leaving her to face the consequences of her actions. 10 minutes later, my divorce lawyer called with an offer. Melody would give me $350,000, let me keep the business and the house, but I had to agree to never discuss what I knew or claim rights to the video. Draw up the settlement, but hold the funds until I sign, I said. How soon can we finalize the divorce? We can set a court date now, but it'll be official 30 days after the judge signs, my lawyer replied. I got dressed up and waited for Carrie and Susan to arrive on their flight. I had roses, red for Carrie and yellow for Susan, and handed them each a check. They both kissed me in thanks. We grabbed their luggage and I led them to the new sedan I'd bought with my cash settlement. Before we head home, I want to show you the finished offices, I said. The rest of the building is rented to a group of lawyers. Carrie asked, how bad was it? Worse than we thought? I laughed. Oh yeah, way worse. We had a meeting with our lawyers, and I showed them the video and printouts of how much Melody had earned. Since we're treating all property as marital, 50% of the income from this video belongs to me. Carrie teared up with relief. Now we can officially date, I explained. I get to keep my business, my house, and $350,000. Melody has a week to move her stuff out. What will you do with the house? Carrie asked. I'm selling it. The woman I fell in love with wouldn't want to be reminded of the past. Carrie smiled, tears in her eyes. Took you long enough to say it, but you got it right in the end. Even Susan, usually more reserved, cried when she saw the offices. The oak and pastel decor gave the space a warm, professional feel. Now we just need a name and office furniture, I said, smiling. You ladies picked great colors. Carrie jumped into my arms. Caleb Corbett, I love you. Damn it, I laughed. You made me wait so long to hear that. No more waiting, I said, kissing her. Later, we took Susan to Carrie's house, where they now lived. It was the first time Carrie had come home with me, and we spent the evening catching up. The next day, we went to breakfast at our favorite deli and then ring shopping. Carrie found one she liked, but hesitated at the price. I asked the salesman to bring it out so she could try it on. It fit perfectly. As she admired it, I paid for it. It's too much for something I'll only wear for a few months, Carrie said. Put it away for our daughter when she turns 16. I shook my head. No, it's for you now. Even the salesperson was teary-eyed as she processed the sale. Carrie's first call was to Susan. We arranged dinner at Baisha Restaurant. Carrie invited her parents, who were eager to meet the man who brought their daughters back home. I called my former father-in-law and his wife, who also wanted to join. I shared that Melody and I had reached an agreement, and the divorce would be finalized soon. I learned that Payne and Melody had gotten engaged, but hadn't spoken since. I asked Mandy to bring her family and called my chef to prepare a special meal. He agreed to make a traditional Irish lamb stew with cedar cookies and his own twist on each dish. He also ordered Irish coffee for everyone, except me. Unexpectedly, he booked a private table in the back of the restaurant for some much-needed privacy. Daniel and Mary, my in-laws, arrived first. giving me the chance to introduce Carrie to them. The biggest surprise came when Carrie's parents, Bob and Roseanne Lasher, showed up. It turned out Daniel had kept them updated on everything. When Jack and Mandy arrived, the little ones, ages 4 and 3, immediately ran to me and hugged me tightly. I leaned down and scooped them both up. Carrie held out her arms and the younger ones went to her. Over a big dinner, we shared the news that Carrie had received her ring. Everyone was shocked by its size when Carrie explained how it happened and how I had reacted. Her mother tried to hold back tears but couldn't. Even the relatives gave their approval. They were puzzled when Carrie told them it was fine if I called them Mom and Dad. "Cale made it clear you'll always be Mom and Dad to him," she said. As usual, the food was fantastic. When the bill came, Carrie's father grabbed it and said, "This one's on me." I wanted to speak up, but then I felt a foot kick me in the shin, so I kept quiet. After everyone left except her parents, we told them the entire story down to the smallest detail. Bob, Carrie's father, asked, "I want to ask you, Cale, if you don't mind. We've all had Irish coffee more than once, except you. Don't you drink at all?" I laughed. Carrie smiled and explained, "Papa, Cale doesn't drink in any establishment he owns, never has and never will. It's a promise he made before he even built this place. It's how he keeps himself in check and sets an example for his employees." Bob laughed and smirked. "So this place of yours is a bit of a high-class establishment, huh? I think it's the only one I'd trust to be good enough for my daughter, my friend." We showed them Carrie's new office layout and design, and it gave us a chance to chat while the women took a tour. Bob was impressed by the quality of the work, the design, and the color scheme. As a father, I could tell he was very proud. "Daniel sees you as the son he never had," Bob said. "He says you're a man who stands by his principles better than anyone." I nodded and then added, "Off the record, Daniel is the father I never had. I grew up in a poor home without a father. He left before they were even married. My mother couldn't have a relationship with another man, so she raised me and my sister on her own. I met Daniel through Melody. He was tough and street smart, but never backed down. I learned a lot from him, like the fact that a real man is strong in every way. He's my father, not by blood, but by choice. The moral principles I carry come from him. I can honestly say I became who I am because of him." We stood in silence for a moment until the women returned. Then Carrie's father spoke. "Carrie, the only thing your mother and I can say, based on what we've been told and what we've learned, is that we approve of your choice. We'd be honored to consider him our son." He extended his hand and I shook it firmly. Later, Carrie told me she was in total shock because her father had never approved of anyone before. We spent the night together, and it was bittersweet to watch her go. Both Susan and Carrie wanted to leave the FDA on good terms. I put the house on the market that Monday. By Wednesday, I signed the divorce agreement and received the money she had been holding in trust. On Friday, I sat in court and watched the judge finalize my divorce. Melody never bothered to show up. I picked up my assistant from Bythia's on Bythia and took him to the new bar. He loved the layout and the kitchen. The city council had granted us all the necessary permits. It was a sports bar taken to the extreme. All that was left was to name it. "Charlie, you've been with me from the start. Would you agree to leave Basia and run this place as general manager?" I asked. "Yes, of course I will," he replied excitedly. $75,000 a year, I said, with a 10% bonus each year based on net income. Charlie was stunned. He had just gotten the biggest pay raise of his life, if he played it right. He could see how much I believed in him. "What are we going to call it?" he asked. "Charlie's Bar and Grill," I replied. 3 years after the divorce, Corbett and Sullivan's accounting firm was thriving. Charlie's Bar and Grill had become a local favorite. Melody and Payne were heading to divorce court, where she caught him with her best friend. Her family still wanted nothing to do with them. I had just gone through the worst day of my life. I didn't realize my wife, Carrie, had so many names for me. Every time she had a severe labor pain, I got a new name. The twins were born 20 minutes apart. First a girl, then a boy. Both had Carrie's fiery red hair. Both sets of relatives were in the room when we announced their names. Daniel and Robert for the boy, and Rosemary Ann for the girl.